You know that moment when everything you've poured your soul into, every late night, every sacrifice, gets stolen by the very people who should have supported you? Well, I lived it. And when they finally called, begging me to save their crumbling empire, that's when the real fun began. My name's Liam, and I'm 28 now, but this whole mess, this 5-year saga of betrayal and comeuppance, it all started when I was 23. 5 years. That's how long it took me to build something truly mine from nothing. To watch it get ripped away, fall into the incompetent hands of someone who didn't have a clue, and then get that desperate call, pleading for me to fix the disaster they created. 5 years of my life, and it only took her 10 months to burn it all to the ground. But I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Let me start at the real beginning. I grew up in what I like to call a performative family. From the outside, we looked picture perfect, typical middle class, well-educated, you know the drill. Christmas photos with matching sweaters, forced smiles at birthday dinners, the whole suburban ideal. But behind that carefully constructed facade, it was just a play, and the lead actress was always my younger sister, Emma. Emma could do no wrong. Ever. I remember this one time. She crashed my mom's car into a neighbor's mailbox while texting. She was 13, I was 16. Somehow, that story morphed into a lecture about how I should have reminded her not to take the car without asking. That was my household. My parents, especially my mom, put her on a pedestal so high you'd need an oxygen mask just to breathe up there. Emma got everything. A new phone every year, tutors when she didn't feel like studying, lavish vacations with her friends because she deserved a break, even though she'd barely lifted a finger her whole life. Me? I was the responsible one, the mature one, which, in family terms, meant the one who was ignored unless something needed fixing. I never really complained, though. I think a part of me genuinely believed that if I just worked hard enough, if I built something truly substantial, I'd finally get noticed. I'd get my moment. I wasn't trying to outshine Emma. I just wanted to build something of my own. Something real. So I did. Right out of college, I started a small digital marketing agency. At first, it was just me, a battered old laptop, and a stack of library books on SEO and branding. I worked out of my bedroom. No funding, no handouts, zero family support. I was the guy my friends called crazy ambitious. I pulled all-nighters, cold emailed potential clients, and juggled freelance gigs on the side just to keep the lights on and buy ramen. My parents? They didn't get it. "Why don't you get a real job?" my dad asked one night over dinner, while Emma scrolled through Instagram, completely oblivious. "I am working," I tried to explain. "It's just different." He just shook his head, like I was speaking a foreign language. "You can't build a life on dreams, Liam." Emma even looked up from her phone and chimed in, "Yeah, that sounds like something off Pinterest." I just stared at my plate, a knot forming in my stomach, thinking they really don't believe in me. But I kept going, because I knew what I was doing had potential, and slowly, steadily, the numbers started proving me right. By the time I turned 25, I had a full team of 6 employees. We had an office space, nothing fancy, but it was ours. I'd landed 3 major clients that basically carried us through the pandemic. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was building a legacy. I even hired a project manager to take on the day-to-day stuff, so I could focus on expansion. And then, everything fell apart. It started with a phone call. "Mom, Liam, honey, could you come over for dinner? Just a family thing," she said. No pressure. I should have known better. I showed up in a hoodie and jeans, exhausted from a day of meetings and interviews, only to find everyone seated like it was some formal holiday meal. Emma, Mom, Dad, even my uncle and aunt, who I hadn't seen in months. I walked in, and I immediately felt the shift in energy. Everyone looked expectant, their smiles polite, too polite. Mom gestured to the seat next to Emma. "Sit, honey. We want to talk to you about something important." I sat. Dad cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been talking. We're so proud of what you've built." That should have been the first red flag. They had never said those words to me before. And we think, he continued, that it's time to take the next step, to really turn this business into a family legacy. I remember blinking, trying to process. What do you mean? Emma smiled like she'd just won a prize. Then Mom dropped the bomb. We want to bring Emma on as a co-owner. I laughed. I genuinely thought it was a joke. Emma? She doesn't know the first thing about marketing. She's got great instincts, Mom said quickly, and she's been taking a few online courses. Emma chimed in. I've actually been thinking about influencer branding. I have a whole vision. A vision for my company. I try to stay calm. That's not how this works. I built this from the ground up. Emma's not even involved. But she could be, Dad said firmly, and you could use the help. You were too much, son. Bringing in family could take some pressure off. I looked around the table. Not a single person was on my side. It was like they'd already made the decision. So, you just expect me to hand over half of everything I built? Don't be so dramatic, Mom said. It's not about halves. It's about trust, unity, family. I stood up. I wasn't shouting, I wasn't crying, but my hand was shaking. No, absolutely not. Emma rolled her eyes. Why are you being so selfish? You act like you're the only one with ideas. I've been working for this every day for years, I said slowly, my voice tight. You weren't there when I couldn't afford groceries. You weren't there when I maxed out my credit card to pay my first hire. You weren't there when I had to sleep in the office because I was pulling 72-hour shifts. You don't get to walk in now and take a piece just because you're family. There was a long silence. Then Mom stood up, her gaze firm. If you won't share it with your sister, maybe it's time to rethink whether this business belongs to the family at all. I froze. What does that mean? It means, Dad said, his voice deceptively calm. We've been talking to our lawyer. You filed the business under the family trust umbrella back when you were living with us. Legally, we may have more say than you think. My stomach dropped. They were right. In my first year, when I couldn't afford legal fees, I'd used a family lawyer. He'd offered to put it under the family trust for tax reasons. I didn't know better. I was desperate. I was young, and they were about to use that against me. I suggest, Dad continued, you think about what kind of example you want to set for your sister. For your future kids. I didn't say another word. I walked out, drove home, and by morning, I'd handed in a resignation letter to my own company. I legally signed over operational control to Emma. They didn't fire me. I walked away. It hurt like nothing else. I spent 2 months feeling like a ghost, angry, numb, hollow. I didn't even log into social media. I couldn't bear to see what they were doing to my company. But after the fog lifted, something changed. I remembered who I was before all this. I remember the drive, the hustle, the fire. So, I started again. Not for them. Not for revenge. For me. And now, 2 years later, I have something new, bigger, smarter, leaner. I built it in silence. No social media announcements, no LinkedIn posts, no interviews. Just work. And, wouldn't you know it, the business I left behind, it's falling apart. Emma can't handle it. Clients are leaving. The branding is all over the place. I heard they tried launching some influencer campaign that backfired hard. They're bleeding money. Last week, I got a call. Mom, Liam, honey, we need to talk. I let it ring. Then came a text from Dad. Emma's having a tough time. Maybe you could come by, just for a quick meeting. I didn't respond. But the part that really made me pause? A voicemail from Emma. Okay, look, I get it. Maybe I was a little unprepared. But this was always supposed to be our thing. Please, just come help. You know how to fix this. I didn't call them back. Didn't text. Didn't even send the classic "who this" message, though I was very tempted. Instead, I poured myself a cup of overpriced coffee from my fancy new espresso machine, a completely unnecessary purchase I made solely because I could, and listened to Emma's voicemail again. Not because I was reconsidering, just because the desperation in her voice was like warm soup for the soul. You ever eat popcorn during a fireworks show? That was me, just vibing while everything they touched went down in flames. Now, let me be clear, I had no intention of getting involved. I knew exactly what would happen. I'd swoop in, fix everything, and they'd give Emma the credit for bringing me back. Not doing that rodeo again. I'd rather eat uncooked rice with a plastic fork than let them drag me into their mess. Besides, I was busy. My new business was booming. I'd built a consulting agency tailored to helping mid-sized companies rebrand and restructure. We were the ghostwriters of success behind the scenes. High retainer, zero drama. I had clients I actually liked, a team that respected me. I worked out of a sleek office downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and one of those pretentious snack bars filled with tiny cans of sparkling water that no one actually drinks, but somehow makes you feel rich. But then, one afternoon, I'm in the middle of reviewing a pitch deck when my phone buzzes. Not a call. A notification from my apartment building's intercom system. Someone was requesting entry from the lobby. Emma B., you know that moment when your stomach drops, but also you want to laugh because this is so absurd it feels like a sitcom episode? Yeah, that. I didn't buzz her in, obviously. I just stood there, staring at the screen like it owed me money. Not even 10 seconds later, my phone buzzed again. Mom calling. I declined. She called again. Declined. Then a text. We're downstairs. Please let us up. We need to talk. We? As in plural? I peeked through the blinds like some old man in a bathrobe watching for squirrels. And yep, there they were. Emma, Mom, and oh great Dad too. Standing outside the building like they were shooting the season finale of a family drama no one asked for. You'd think that would be enough to make them go away. But no, Emma had a plan. She pulled out her phone and started calling residents at random through the intercom system. I could hear her voice over the speaker. Hi, I'm here to see my brother. He must have stepped away. Could you let me in, please? She was trying to crowdsource a break-in. And unfortunately, some sweet old lady named Mildred in Unit 4B must have believed her because I heard the buzz. And then the doors opened. They were in the building now. I live on the 7th floor, and my elevator takes exactly 47 seconds to arrive on a good day. So I did what any self-respecting, passive-aggressively petty sibling would do. I poured myself another cup of coffee, and I waited. About a minute later, ding, a knock on the door. I opened it halfway, leaned against the frame, and greeted them with the warmest, fakest smile I could muster. Oh, wow, look who figured out how doors work. Mom immediately went into this breathy, fake concern monologue. Liam, sweetheart, we really didn't want it to come to this, but Emma's going through such a difficult time, and I held up a finger. Stop. You had me at we didn't want it to come to this. Because you did. You absolutely did. You just thought it would be easier to ambush me than admit you were wrong. Dad tried to step in, like he was the level-headed negotiator. Son, no one's saying you weren't right, but this is bigger than ego. The business is on the verge of collapse. Clients are backing out. The staff is quitting. Your sister is doing her best. She used Comic Sans in a corporate proposal, Dad. I interrupted. Emma scoffed. It was a creative choice. I stared at her. You printed the company logo in pink glitter. It was a rebrand. You used glue and actual glitter in 2025. She looked ready to argue, but I turned back to my parents. So let me guess. You thought if you showed up here, you could guilt me into helping? You thought I'd roll over like I always do, fix your mess, and go quietly back into the shadows? Right? They didn't say anything. I let the silence stretch for a beat. Then I stepped aside, not to invite them in, just so they could see what I had now. Behind me, my apartment glowed. Hardwood floors, minimalist furniture, actual art, not IKEA live, laugh, love stuff. Real art. The smell of espresso and air conditioning. Peace, I said softly. Doesn't look like someone who needs rescuing, does it? Mom blinked. Liam, please. Just talk to Emma. Maybe help her for a few weeks, get the business back on track. Then you can walk away again if you want to. I tilted my head. Walk away again? I didn't walk away the first time. You pushed me off a cliff, then handed Emma the keys to my parachute and told her to figure it out. Dad sighed. Be reasonable. Reasonable, I countered, would have been not stealing my company in the first place. Then Emma, in classic golden child fashion, threw a tantrum. I don't know why you're being like this. You always act like you're so much better than everyone. Maybe if you weren't so dramatic, none of this would have happened. I gave her the slow blink of a cat who's about to knock a glass off the table, just because it's there. You're right, I said. I am better. That's why my business is thriving while yours is giving out free pins at farmers markets to stay relevant. She gasped. Mom looked horrified. Liam, she snapped, you're being cruel. No, I said, stepping back and gently closing the door. I'm being honest. And for once in my life, I'm not going to apologize for it. Click. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I just shut it and locked it. They stood outside for a while. I could hear muffled voices. Emma ranting, Mom trying to calm her down, Dad muttering something about ungrateful. And then, finally, footsteps fading down the hallway. But the funny part? That wasn't the end of it. Because they didn't come all this way just to have a dramatic hallway confrontation. They had a backup plan. 2 days later, I came home from the gym to find a plate of cookies on my doorstep. No note, no explanation. Just a neat little plate, wrapped in plastic, sitting there like some kind of suburban peace offering. Now, for most people, this might seem sweet, heartwarming even. But you have to understand something. My mother only bakes cookies under 2 conditions: to manipulate someone or to manipulate someone harder. She was the kind of mom who made passive-aggressive pies, a double chocolate guilt trip, if you will. So when I saw that plate of homemade forgiveness, I didn't feel warm and fuzzy. I felt like I was being baited into a trap. I picked them up using a towel, because again, Glitter Glue Woman is still out there, and tossed the whole thing into the trash like I was defusing a bomb. Then I checked my phone for missed calls. 3 voicemails, and 1 text that made me audibly laugh. Emma, hey, so I talked to this guy who used to be your assistant, said you always like cinnamon chip cookies, hope they're still your favorite, let's talk. What an absolutely psychotic mix of espionage and baked goods. They'd gone from ignoring me to bribing me with dessert in under 48 hours. That's got to be a record. I didn't respond. That evening, I decided to decompress by playing some piano. Yes, I play piano, and no, I'm not good enough to make it a personality trait. But after about 10 minutes, I heard a knock on my door. Not a polite one. It was that kind of knock that says, we know you're in there, and we're not leaving. I sighed, stood up, and opened the door partially, of course. Guess who? Emma, again. This time wearing sunglasses indoors and holding a clipboard, like she was about to audit me. And standing behind her, my mother, wearing pearls. Pearls. Who wears pearls to a confrontation? Who plans their manipulation outfit? Liam, Mom said, all breathless urgency, I know you're upset, but we just need a few minutes of your time. Just hear us out, please. Emma held up the clipboard like she was summoning a spell. I brought projections. I just stared at her. Projections? I repeated. She nodded, completely serious. Yes, I've crunched the numbers. The business can recover in under 6 months if we bring you in as a temporary consultant. Oh, now I was consultant. Last year, I was emotionally unstable and too controlling. Now I'm a one-man resurrection service. I opened the door just a little wider and crossed my arms. Let me guess, I said. You get to stay in charge, I do all the work, and when things look good again, you take the credit and go on another podcast talking about young female entrepreneurship? Emma blinked. That podcast invited me, and I am an entrepreneur. You once ordered interns to rearrange the office plants based on their vibes, I said. That's not leadership. That's a Pinterest board having a seizure. Mom stepped forward, her tone suddenly much firmer. This isn't about personal grudges, Liam. This is about family. Emma is struggling. She needs you. And I think you need us too, deep down. I actually had to stop myself from laughing. I'm doing just fine without you, I said calmly. My business is thriving. I don't miss the drama, the emotional acrobatics, or the constant gaslighting. So no, I don't need anything from you. Emma looked ready to explode. Why are you being like this? Like what? Petty, I said, tilting my head. I'm not being petty. I paused. Yet, that's when it got fun. I took out my phone and opened my photo gallery. I've been saving something for just this occasion, a screenshot. It was a client testimonial from one of the companies I now worked with, a company they had lost. The testimonial read, "We worked with Emma for 3 months. Zero communication, poorly run campaigns, and branding decisions that actively damaged our image. We're now working with Liam's team, and in just 6 weeks, we've seen an 87% increase in engagement and measurable ROI. Wish we'd started with them." I turned the screen toward them and watched both their faces shift in real time. Emma looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Mom's lips pressed into a tight line. "Maybe next time," I said. "Don't fire the guy who built your house when you can't even hold a hammer." Emma snapped. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Oh, deeply. I'm considering printing this testimonial on a mug." Then I gave him the smile. You know, the "you played yourself" smile. Emma made a sound I can only describe as a cross between a hiss and a curse she didn't say out loud, then stormed down the hallway in her heels like the ground had insulted her ancestors. Mom stayed behind for a moment. "Liam," she said quietly, "you're burning bridges." I nodded. "Yeah, but I brought marshmallows." And then I closed the door again, this time for good. And I meant it. There was no dramatic music, no slow-motion montage of me weeping after they left. I didn't look longingly at a photo of us at the beach when we were kids. There was no softening, no second-guessing. I sat back down at my desk, opened up my laptop, and got back to work. Because unlike Emma, I had actual clients who relied on me. Not just a Pinterest board and a vision board taped to a coffee cup. Days passed, then weeks in the silence from my family. Absolutely golden. Like the kind of silence you get on a Sunday morning when it's raining and the power's out and nobody's asking you to fix something you didn't break. Peace. But of course, word travels fast in the world of self-imploding businesses. Within a month, I started hearing little things from people I knew who still had some degree of contact with him. I never asked for updates, but oh boy, the universe loves a petty man who minds his business. Emma's branding initiative had apparently included a social media campaign where she compared her journey to a phoenix rising from the ashes of male-dominated mediocrity, which might have worked if she hadn't accidentally tweeted it from the company's official account while a male client was tagged in the same thread. They lost that client in under 5 minutes. Then there was the office incident. She had decided to remodel the workspace for a more artsy, collaborative flow. What that meant in practice: she removed all the desks and replaced them with bean bags. Bean bags. For a team of over-caffeinated creatives juggling laptops, graphics tablets, and external monitors. One guy's back gave out. Another quit mid-Zoom call after sliding out of a beanbag in front of a client. The office manager apparently just stopped showing up. Meanwhile, my mom doubled down on her classic tactic, denial. She kept posting inspirational Facebook quotes like, "Tough times never last, but tough families do," paired with stock photos of eagles flying through storm clouds. One of my old high school friends texted me, "Your mom's Facebook is turning into a motivational calendar from 2003. Should I be concerned?" Dad, from what I gathered, had attempted to take a more active role in the business to help Emma navigate the chaos, which translated from family speak to he tried to call some old client from my time and convince them to come back. You know what happened? One of them emailed me, "Hey, just wanted you to know your dad tried to sell me on working with Emma again." I told him I'd rather invest in a banana stand run by raccoons. Banana stand raccoons. I framed that email. So yeah, it was falling apart. The Instagram page dried up. The website went from cutting-edge creative agency to 404 not found. I checked out of curiosity one day. The last blog post was titled, "Innovation Means Letting Go." A fitting eulogy, honestly. Then quiet. Radio silence. No calls, no messages, no baked goods. They had finally accepted what I had known all along. I wasn't coming back. I wasn't going to play fixer-upper to their crumbling sandcastle. And let me tell you, cutting them off was the greatest gift I ever gave myself. Because without the weight of their expectations, their judgments, their manipulations, I soared. My business tripled its revenue in a year. I spoke at conferences, got invited to do podcasts, which I politely declined because I don't need to tell strangers about my grind set while sipping green juice on a white couch. I mentored young entrepreneurs, ones who actually listened, who wanted to learn, not just be handed the CEO title because they bought a new blazer and a copy of Atomic Habits. I bought a cabin by a lake, started dating again. I even bought a new car, not flashy, just nice, one of those ones with heated seats and Bluetooth that actually works. And every now and then, I'd get that old, nagging thought, wondering if maybe I should check in, see if the family ever recovered, if they were doing better. But then I'd get home, open my door to my quiet, clean apartment, and think, why ruin a perfectly good day? Some people say success is the best revenge. I disagree. Success is loud, flashy, temporary. Peace is what you feel when you close a door and know, deep in your bones, that no one on the other side has the power to open it again. And that, my friends, is how I became the villain in their story and the hero in mine.